Hey guys, Raul Acuna with Acuna and Company Real Estate. Just wanted to go over some guidelines with you. There are people have reached out that are in the process of finding a home or need to sell a home in today's environment with coronavirus. Housing is considered essential, and many people, like I said, are in a position where they're in between homes, their lease is expired, they need to move. Uh, Maybe for jobs, there's a lot of reasons that people are in a position that they need housing. So they have reached out. There's a lot of questions regarding how does this work in today's environment, COVID-19. So the California Association of Realtors has actually worked very closely with the governor's office and put together best practices and guidelines for selling, showing, and viewing homes in today's environment. So I just wanted to go over some of the best practices they've come up with and that we should be practicing when looking for a home or selling a home. And so I'm going to go over that now. And as you can see here, we have kind of a top 7 that we're going to go over. And basically, the number one thing we're going to do when showing a house or listing your home for sale is do a virtual tour. And this needs to be something more than just the picture slideshow, because we need to have an actual video virtual tour that we could send prospective buyers that are interested in your home. There are many reasons that a buyer may not, that your home may not be right for the buyer, right? So a lot of times it's the way the floor plan's laid out. There could be little things within the house that they're looking for that's hard to tell on the description. For various reasons, people need to see the house. So if you send them a virtual tour that gives them a good aspect of how the layout is, and they're basically doing a walkthrough virtually, for a lot of buyers, they can basically eliminate some of the houses that don't work for them. So you don't have to be going into those homes. Buyers don't need to be going into those homes. Sellers can reduce the amount of people flowing through their houses because they've seen the virtual tour. They've determined that that property doesn't work for them and they can move on to the next. So that's the number one thing we can do, is to keep things virtually if at all possible. And that leads us to number 2, which is basically completing all activity electronically. So in today's world of the internet, it's actually very easy to do things electronically. You can make offers, you can sign documents. There are a lot of things done via email that we can do without having to do face-to-face physical contact. So those, number one, if we do those things first to make sure that we're eliminating any physical contact that doesn't need to happen, we can eliminate that and keep everybody safe. And if we do get to the point where at some point, you need to see the physical house, you need to walk through it, the basic guidelines are to have only one single agent and no more than 2 other individuals in a dwelling at the same time. So a lot of times people, if they're looking for a home, they might have other decision makers that they want their opinion on and advice as they're looking at homes. Or maybe they need to take their family with them. It's hard to get babysitters in today's environment because we're all quarantined. Well, those people need to stay in the car so that we can have no more than 2 individuals in the house at one time. And that's just to keep the social distance and the physical distancing as best as possible. Which leads us to number 4, which is the sellers are advised not to be within the dwelling at the same time as other individuals. So, however, you can be on the property. So you can go in the backyard if you're a seller, you can go into the front yard. You just don't want to be inside the dwelling while it's being shown, to just reduce the amount of people in the same area. So basically, you can limit to the agent and the buyers. And for sellers, it might be hard. Maybe some people aren't working right now, so it might be hard to not be at the property. So if you can be outside, allow them to show it, and then you can return into the home after they've left. That's going to allow us to keep the physical distancing as much as possible. And the next basically is any persons on the property need to sign a form. So it used to be we would just set up an appointment, we would go in, we would show the property based on appointment, or if it was vacant, we would just access the lockbox. But now the best practice is to have every buyer, every person that's going to enter the house, sign a PEAD form, which is basically saying that they're going to abide by strict social distancing guidelines and remain at least 6 feet apart. With this form, every person that's entering the property is declaring that to the best of their knowledge, they are not currently ill with a cold, a flu, do not have any symptoms of fever, persistent cough, shortness of breath, or exhibit any other COVID-19 symptoms. And they have not been in contact with any person with COVID-19 and will adhere to the following precautions required before viewing the property. So every person that enters your property needs to sign this form declaring they have not been sick, they do not have any symptoms. To the best of their knowledge, they have not even been in contact with someone that's had COVID-19, so that when they're not spreading this around. So every single person that views the home, enters the home, must do that. And if you're a buyer, you need to sign this form and present that to every home that you enter, declaring that you don't have any symptoms and that you haven't been in any contact with someone. So that's very important that your realtor is doing that, whether you're a buyer or a seller, that you have a realtor taking those forms. If you're a seller, that's taking them from every occupant or every person walking through. And if you're a buyer, you're having your client sign that for every person, for every home they're watching. So all persons visiting a property must agree to wash their hands with soap and or use hand sanitizer prior to entry. They may also wear disposable rubber gloves, wear protective face masks if one is available, and sellers must disclose. So this is also for the sellers. Sellers must disclose to persons that are entering the property if they have been ill with a cold, flu, or COVID-19, if they've had a fever, cough, shortness of breath, or if they have been in contact with anyone with COVID-19. And after the fact, if the property's been shown, whether it be a seller or a potential buyer, if they, after the fact, get diagnosed with COVID-19, they must immediately inform their agent and the listing agent, and so that the best efforts can be made to inform everyone that's been at the property if someone has been personally diagnosed with COVID-19. So disclosure is very important right up front, even just from entering a property. People must wear protective equipment, masks, gloves, wash their hands before and after leaving the property, just so that everyone can be safe. We're limiting the amount of people even going in the property, and we're trying to eliminate the people that don't need to be in the property at all. So the days of having open houses and having, the neighbors just walk through just because they're curious about the house, we're going to reduce all of that and basically only show the house when it's essential, when it's time to maybe make an offer and you just need to walk through that house. And everyone needs to follow these best practices guidelines, and there needs to be disclosure before and after of any symptoms that a person might have. This is in order to keep everybody safe, to keep all agents safe, and just to kind of reduce the amount of physical contact that we would need to do. And it allows us people to continue to find a home in this environment while keeping everybody safe. So it's a matter of safety as well as liability, because you also don't want to be liable because you didn't disclose, or you're walking around ill and not telling people and spreading it around. That's just not something we can do anymore in today's environment. So those are some of the best practices that what we're going to do when we list a house. We're going to provide shoe covers for any person that's going to walk through. We're going to provide hand sanitizer for everyone that walks through to sanitize their hands, and encourage them not to touch anything within the house. They need to sign the disclosure saying that they're not sick or do not have any symptoms and have not been in contact with anyone. And so with those things, we can be provided, people can provide their face masks, and we can keep everybody safe and continue to provide housing for those who need it, especially here in California where housing has been an issue to begin with. So these are some of the top guidelines I wanted to share with you guys. If you have more questions or more detailed, if you're thinking of selling or you need to buy, you can always reach out and we can talk in more detail about what we can do and what we're providing for our clients in today's environment. So I want to thank you for watching and hope you all have a good and safe day.